Hello, my name is Jennifer Lopez, and today I'm going to be with Wilmer Amparo talking about pronunciation, intonation, rhythm, and stress. We are going to learn how to get a better pronunciation in English, how to use the intonation to communicate feelings, and the rhythm of English, and how to identify stressed syllables. The first thing we're going to talk about is pronunciation. What is pronunciation? In the most inclusive sense, the form in which the elementary symbols of a language are arranged in patterns of pitch, loudness, and duration. Questions of pronunciations are raised only in connection with valid judgments. How do you pronounce or spell that word? Is either a request for the correct pronunciation or spelling by one who is unsure or a proof for evidence that the respondent does not pronounce or spell correctly or speaks a different dialect. Perhaps an idiosyncrasy of speech, which is when someone uses normal words or phrases in a normal way. The word will be a real word in the speaker's native language, but it won't actually be associated with whatever they are referring to. Only mispronunciations are noticeable, therefore distracting. They introduce noise into the communication system to reduce its efficiency. How we use spoken, stress, and rhythm is also an important part of pronunciation. For example, it is important to know which syllables in a word are stressed and how different patterns of stressed and unstressed syllables are pronounced. There are also common patterns of intonation in English that enable us to give a special emphasis to particular words, phrases, and sentences. Connecting the speech. If we want to sound more fluent when we are speaking English, a technique to achieve that is linking or connecting the words. For example, here we have the words all and over. We are going to link them or connect them to pronounce them as all over. Same thing happened in these two words, at and the. We're going to link them or connect them to pronounce them at the. And same happen with the verb picked up, which is a regular verb in simple past. There is a T at the end of picked that is going to be linked to up to be pronounced picked up. Other pronunciation training techniques that we can use are the ear training and the pause and imitate. The ear training, we use them to learn how to pronounce better in English by our ears, by training our ears. This is basically to be surrounded with the sounds of the language. And for that, we are going to listen to music, to listen to podcasts, to watch movies or videos, to practice with a native speaker, etc. Then we have the pause and imitate technique, which is also called shadowing techniques. This one allows us to practice our pronunciation by imitating a native speaker. It is very important if we are going to use this technique to get a better pronunciation, use a native speaker or imitate a native speaker, because we are going to learn how this person pronounce the words, the stress and the rhythm that that person uses. Intonation. What is intonation? Intonation in phonetics is the melodic pattern of the utterance. Intonation is primarily a matter of variation in the pitch level of the voice. But in such languages as English, stress and rhythm are also involved. Intonation conveys differences of expressive meaning, for example, anger or surprise. In English, we have four different intonation patterns, which are rising, falling, and falling, rising. These different types of intonation can mean different things in each situation. For example, rising, how many? Falling, how many? Rising, falling, how many? And falling, rising, how many? We also can use the intonation at the end of a sentence. If the sentence is finish, we are going to use our falling tone. For example, I live anyway. Wilmer is a student. We might be a bit early. If the sentence is not finished, we are going to use a rising tone. For example, I live in Higüey, but I was born in Atomayo. Wilmer is a student, however, he's not in college right now. We can also use the intonation when we are talking about new and old information. If we are going to mention an old information, we are going to use a rising tone. And if we're going to mention or add a new information, we are going to use a falling tone. For that, we are going to practice this conversation. Did you get the cake?
I thought you were going to get the cake.
How are we going to have a birthday party without a cake?
We can go to the pastry shop and buy some cupcakes there.
But I heard their cupcakes are not that good.
I don't know about cupcakes, but I have tried the bread and they are delicious.
All right. In the second sentence, I thought you were going to get the cake. The word you is pronounced in a falling tone because it wasn't mentioned before. It was mentioned, but it was in a different context. So in this case, the word you is near. And cake is going to be pronounced with a rising tone because it was mentioned in the previous sentence. The same thing happens in the third sentence with birthday party, which is going to be pronounced with a falling tone because it wasn't mentioned before. And the word cake that was mentioned in the previous two sentences. The intonation can be used also when we are asking questions. If we don't know the answer, we are going to use a falling tone. But if we think we know the answer, we are going to use a rising tone. Falling tone, when you don't know the answer, for example, have you ever been in the United States? Did you have a good time in your vacation? Where are you going next time? And rising tone, when we think we might know the answer. You were in the United States last year, weren't you? You went back on Monday, right? Are you traveling to Spain next month, aren't you? So when we are asking information questions, we are going to use a falling tone. For example, where are we going to dinner? What is Mary doing here? How many times have you been out of the country? And if we're asking yes, no questions, we are going to use a rising tone. Are you coming tonight? Wasn't she sick? Is your mother traveling tomorrow? We also use the intonation when we ask questions to communicate ideas. In this case, these questions do not require an answer because, as I said, they are communicating different ideas. We use them to make a comment, to make a suggestion, or to criticize someone. To make a comment or a suggestion, we are going to use a falling tone. And to criticize someone, we are going to use a rising tone. Falling tone to make a comment. Doesn't she look pretty? Isn't the pizza too spicy? Falling tone to make a suggestion. How about the red dress? Why don't you text your mom and ask her what's going on? Rising tone to criticize someone. Are you crazy? Have you gone insane? Are you really that dumb? We use the intonation to express different emotions. To express emotions, we are going to use the rising falling tone. In this case, the rising tone is going to be lower or higher depending on which emotion we want to express. For example, if we are annoyed, the rising tone is going to be lower. And if we are surprised, the rising tone is going to be longer and higher. We also use the falling tone when we want to be sarcastic. For example, that looks beautiful. And we use the rising tone to express doubt. Is he really that rich? That is all for my presentation.
Stress and rhythm. Stress word. Stress sentence. Importance of rhythm. Stress. English is known as a stressed language. Stressed languages are languages spoken with different level of emphasis on the word and syllable in the sentences. Although stress and rhythm are an important part of English pronunciation, we must remember that it would be impossible for anyone to speak naturally with a set of rule in mind. By far, the best way to improve the pronunciation is through contact with native English speakers, either through conversation, by watching films and news channels, or listening to the radio. However, the patterns of stress below may be useful for us, for example, when preparing a discussion or a presentation, and help us to feel more comfortable. Stress word. In English, we accentuate or stress one syllable in a word. We pronounce that syllable louder than the others. There are words with just one syllable, like mind, and words with one straight syllable and one or more weak syllable, like remind, reminder, and reminding. When a noun or adjective stems from a one-syllable word, for example, art, mind, the stress usually stays on the original word. For example, art become artist, break, breakable, friend, friendly, paint, painter, come, become, mind, remind. As you can see here, the stress is on the original word. To differentiate between a noun and a verb with the same spelling, a stress position changes. When this a noun, decrease, to decrease, insult, to insult, a object, to object, a protest, to protest, a record, to record, a rebel, to rebel, a suspect, to suspect, as transfer, as transfers. That's how we differentiate the noun and a verb. In compound nouns, two words merged into one, the stress is on the first part. Book, bookshop, football, notebook, toothbrush. The stress is generally at the end of words ending in ear. For example, engineer, pioneer, and volunteer. Stress usually falls after prefixes, dismiss, prepare, untie. Stress usually falls on the syllable before the following letters. The words below are just some examples. There are many more. Before tion, for example, attention, competition, demonstration, explanation, and invitation. Before Ica, elastic, historic, fantastic, biological, illogical, philosophical, and political. Before eti, authority, majority, paternity, society, variety. Before scient, iens and ial, convenient, efficient, expensive, and essential. Stress words within sentences. Not all words receive equal stress within a sentence in English. Content words are stressed. Content words include nouns like school, station, train, normal verbs like run, work, speak, adjective like beautiful, tall, friendly, and adverb like quickly, noisily, and badly. Function words are on stress. Function words include determiners, like a, and, the, auxiliary verb like can, have, may, conjunction like and, but, and us, and pronouns like you, he, she, us. Even if the listener does not hear some quickly pronounced function word, the meaning of the whole sentence should be clear. This is how native speakers of English communicate. Emphasis is put on the most important word. For example, would you like a cup of tea? It is a general rule of English that when there is a sequence of equal stresses, the last stress word should be the strongest or the loudest, which in the above case would be T. The reading. Reading is the speed and cadence of how you say a sentence. Some beginner students might say each word in a sentence at the same speed and sound like a robot. Developing different speed and knowing when to slow down and speed up can give your spoken English more interest. Importance of English reading. The English reading is very important because to us because we must be able to distinguish between words that are stressed and those that are not stressed. When speaking English, it is very important to remember which words are stressed in the sentence. The sound of English is defined by a rhythm formed around a stressed syllable. English is also a stressed time because it has an equal amount of time spent on each stress in a sentence and an equal amount of time spent on any gaps between syllables. This reading is what gives English its beat. The reading is regarded as one of the most important components of communication. Reading in English are used to convey emotion and feelings, and they can also be used to convey movement or action. Reading is also is a fundamental part of verbal communication and can be used to convey movement and reading in a text. Reading is frequently used to create excitement or suspense in English. This was our presentation. We hope that you enjoy it and understand everything about the pronunciation, intonation, stress, and rhythm. Thank you.
Thank you.